Yes, thank you very much. If we can, let me see. With, can I have the? Yeah. And yes. Yes. What is our overall ambition? This is a bit what I'm going to say. Why should we use the financial instruments versus grants? Because these are the two, grants versus financial instruments. A bit about the history, and then the urban development financing in 2014-20. Let me see. How do we? Yeah. Why? Maybe before that, why do we want to move away from the subsidies? It does not say that we want to substitute everything that has been supported by grants, but we want to be much more efficient in using public funds. Where there is revenue generating actions, we have to, and where the incentive effect with public money can be provided only through accessibility to financing, we have to use financial instruments. We don't want to crowd out private investment. We don't want to substitute private investment. We need to achieve the highest leverage effect of public money, and this is by introducing at a larger scale revolving funds. What do we mean by, but that of course will be much more explained by the colleague from the EIB. Of course there are loans, grants, equity, quasi-equity, so there are a number of instruments that can be used. Of course what we want is that the most adequate toolbox of financial instruments should be designed, which will match the market needs. So for the financial instruments for the future programming period, we have to start with market evaluation of the needs for financial accessibility support and the types of instruments that will match these needs in the best possible way. Plus, we don't want to compete with the banks. That is something very, very important. Anything that can be done on the financial accessibility front by the banks should be done by the banks. Again, for the why increased impact, because with €1 we can support much more projects than before, because the grant you give once and it is not returned anymore. With the revolving funds, the circulation of money circulates through a number of projects. On the efficiency and effectiveness gains, I have to mention several success factors like the critical mass, like synergies and complementarities between financial instruments, grants, and other instruments of the national or EU support. One mistake I would like to signal from our current experience: don't park the money in financial instruments. We had it throughout this period. For the next programming period, anything that is introduced in financial instruments should be used in 2 years. So it cannot stay for 10 years before it reaches the final recipients. I would move again for the historical evidence. One of the most difficult things is setting up the funds. My colleague from the EIB will talk about that. It's not easy, but this is huge experience that we accumulated by setting up funds in this programming period. Anything that has been suffered throughout this period can be of great use for the next programming period, because a lot of funds can be still fed with money in the next programming period, so there is no need that you set up new funds if there are existing ones. Another, it's a cultural change, is that the managing authorities and politicians should realize and recognize that they are not going to choose projects anymore. It is the financial instrument which is the beneficiary of the funds. The financial instrument benefits, and then the recipient are the small and medium enterprises, for example. You see that we need a critical mass. So there are a number of lessons that I'm not going to go further into that to make it shorter. I would just say two very important things. we are trying to increase in the Commission, together with the EIB, to increase the number of off-the-shelf financial instruments. These are ready solutions with a set of rules that we can propose and set of a metrics of how to organize a financial instrument and ready instruments. This is to facilitate the rollout of such funds, and we will really recommend to use them. With regard to an off-the-shelf instrument for urban development fund, we're trying to do something in that respect, which will result in an implementing regulation. So it is in the pipeline. This is what I can say for the moment, but of course colleagues are welcome to add. And what is this? Yes, the last element that I wanted to mention is the new general block exemption regulation with regard to state aid. It is in force as of 1st of July 2014, so just recently. There is one provision there where, because in the previous ones there was no exemption related to urban development funds, now we have such an exemption, which of course is linked with a number of requirements, like maximum 20 million per project support of it, minimum leverage of private funds, because the leverage effect is extremely important. This is and the multiplying effect is very important for the financial instruments. It should be based on competitive selection of managers and investors. So, but there is an exemption for such funds in the so-called assisted areas. Assisted areas meaning the ones that receive additional support from the government, and they are really identified by the government. So this is the novelty. Look into it, into the new general block exemption regulation. It is a novelty for anyone that is interested in how to implement financial instruments in urban areas. I will stop here. Thanks a lot.
Okay.